My diagnosis is a meat deficiency syndrome.
Tim, how did you find carnivore?
Um, I was watching YouTube videos trying to fix health problems, which I'd had for pretty severe for the last 7 years, nearly 7 years now. Um, and I started with all the other stuff, and I eventually got around. I can't remember who first I saw, but I saw one of the crowd, one of the doctors probably, and I started to think about it, and I heard stories that were vaguely similar to mine. Not exactly the same, but similar enough that I thought maybe I can do it, because before that, for the first 50, I'm 56, first 56 years, 54, 50 years, or maybe even 49, I was vegetarian from birth. And so actually introducing meat was going to be quite tricky. Um, so I needed huge amounts of mental conditioning to talk myself out of that. And the taste was also odd. Never eaten meat in my life, so it was really odd. But I got the last thing that happened, it was a strange sequence because I had fatty liver. First time I'd ever gotten a fatty liver score, and I got a scan for fatty liver, was January last year, and I went low carb immediately. But it took a few months to start putting meat in. But I put the meat in too, and I noticed a little bit of extra oomph. I was just having a tiny bit, but tablespoon of mince, cow mince, and eventually I threw in a bit of fish and stuff like that. But it took me until the middle of last year, I think it was, and I built up to um, phasing out vegetables, which took a couple of goes. I phased them out. I got leg cramps, which I already had, but they got worse. I put some back in. I phased them out. Eventually, I got them out, and my tummy, my swollen, uncomfortable tummy feelings, instantly disappeared. So that was another problem. I don't really have. I don't feel my digestion virtually ever anymore. I used to have two sore patches, a swollen feeling, couldn't digest eggs very well, could only really have a couple of eggs a day. Otherwise, my number two smelt like eggs, which is gross. So I slowly phased in carnivore. Occasionally, I'd throw in some carbs. After the middle of last year, you would have the occasional day or even two where I'd have some carbs. I'd make a white flour and egg omelette kind of thing, and occasionally a few mishaps where I'd have maybe a cookies or something like that. But generally, zero carb, carnivore, um, red meat, butter, eggs, some pork. Bacon's a bit of a problem because I'm sensitive to oxalates. So I think it's the spices in bacon which I react to, so I get body pain from that. It feels good in my digestion, but the body doesn't like it. So yeah, so I've gotten rid of the body pain more and more and more, just fading away. Today is fading away better than ever. I don't think I would have done this interview unless I'd had a lot of recovery in terms of body pain and fatigue. It's just in the last couple of weeks that it's really turning even more quickly. More energy, less pain, my joints hurting a bit less, They were always painful, very hard to walk. I could only walk a few minutes a day, less than a couple of kilometres a day, and I was pushing it, doing that. It was hurting.
So, congratulations on the results. I've got a few questions on just going back a little bit. So, firstly, so you've been full carnivore since when?
Since middle of last year, I'm not sure the exact date, but it's been quite a few months. I haven't been 100%, even in the last few couple of months. I've snuck a couple of teaspoons of honey into my coffee a couple of times. I just wanted to test the carbs to see if it would release my carb pains, because previously it had helped a little bit to release the carb pains, but it's been so low. It's really been very close to 100% carnivore for months now, and mostly carnivore for the last 6 months or more.
Mm. So the body pain has gone, but when you talk about carb pain, what is that?
Um, well, I felt like I was getting pain from not having any carbs. So it's not so much a carb pain, it's kind of the opposite. But that doesn't work anymore. Putting carbs in does not change my body pain at all now. I felt other people were talking about getting rid of this pain in the calves, and I had burning and stiffness and soreness. I'm constantly stretching and bending my knees and bending my hips and flexing up my ankles. So, but I don't need the carbs anymore. So I'm pretty much dedicated to zeroing them out as much as possible, virtually forever. I think that'll be the go. I feel so much better already. And I feel like I'm only halfway, if that. So there's more recovery to go, but it's just this rocket ship taking off in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Afternoons, I was painting yesterday, and I was getting hours and hours of work done in a day, where before I was just in bed. I was absolutely had it. And I would just get up for a minute or two here and there, and then I was absolutely had it. So the rocket ship's taking off. It's taken about 6 months of pretty much complete carnivore, and then I'm getting the takeoff. I feel like I'm going to recover now, and if it'll just be weeks, maybe months, and I'll be 100%. I think my joints, they're the last. They feel like they're the last thing to recover, but who knows? That might be gone in no time too. Still not sleeping that well yet,
Mm.
but I can sleep right through. I don't get woken up by having to pee either. Prostate fixed. Carnivore fixes prostate or stopping. Well, I stopped dairy, and I've introduced that in occasionally. My prostate swells. Can't pee. Got to get up at night. If I eat a lot of dairy for 2 days in a row, it's horrific. You feel like, even when you've peed, you feel like you still have to. It's a horrible feeling. But a day or two, a day of no dairy, and boom, I'm back in business 100%. So beautiful.
And what has happened with your body composition along the way?
Okay, so I started at 122 kilograms and lost about a kilogram a week. 20
Mm.
weeks later, so middle of the year, last year, 102 kilograms.
Mm.
And I've stayed approximately there for the rest of the time. So it hasn't really changed again. I think one thing working against me is I haven't really been able to exercise. Too much fatigue and too much soreness. If I walk, my feet swell up, my ankles swell up, my knees, my hips, everything hurts like crazy. So
And
that'll be
what's
the
that
next.
related to?
That I'm not even sure what that is. Um, when I first mentioned that to doctors, I got the all in the head diagnosis. Oh, that's all in your head. You made that up, kind of thing. And I researched it myself for 3 years, and I figured out that one of the triggers was oxalates. And when I stopped having them, that pain halved, but was still serious. I went to the dietitian. They agreed. They gave me a program. They got an excellent program for oxalate problems. Soaps and stuff like that. You get special soaps. Your skin's very sensitive as well. And after that, it was still, oh, it's nothing. It's this, it's that. I did a sleep study, which hasn't come back yet, but the doctors have changed their tune. Now they checked me for rheumatoid. Not, I don't have those signs. They checked, and now they're referring me to a pain specialist, saying it's fibromyalgia. But I think at the rate I'm recovering, by the time I get to the specialist, I'll be okay. Yeah, my diagnosis is a meat deficiency syndrome. So yeah, I still don't have a diagnosis.
So on that meat deficiency syndrome, I mean, what led to the 50 years of vegetarianism, and how did that go? How did that feel 50 years?
Well, my family was that, and the community generally was pretty high up in, pretty excited about being a vegetarian. I think I was um, a bit lifeless. I think it wasn't doing me well at all. I didn't have serious health problems, but I wasn't dead. I wasn't really very alive either. So, um, and then I felt a bit lifeless, and the whole thing culminated. I felt lifeless. I wasn't working. Um, I got worse with age, really, and then I got fatter with age. I was probably moving towards diabetes. I always had a big stomach, and I decided to try. I was watching YouTubes as you do. I decided to try raw vegan. So that took 6 months to ruin my health, utterly 100%. And that is when I became oxalate sensitive, I think. And then all the other body problems that came along with that. Um, and then I was sick for the last 7 years. So I'm not sure exactly of the years. Might have been 49 when I went raw vegan. I can't remember the exact year of that. But I think that was in 2016 I did that. And then by early 2017, I was in deep water. It was horrific. The pain, the fatigue, it was off the charts. Brain fog, it was absolutely horrible.
What uh, I haven't watched any raw vegan channels on YouTube. What does a day of raw vegan eating look like?
Um, Nuts, you're eating a lot of nuts for protein, nut seeds. You might eat beans for protein.
Uh-huh.
Um, oh, now the beans, that was one of the cooked things I had. I tried to have as much raw as I could, but I still was having a tiny bit of cooked. So beans you got to cook. Um, you're eating a ton of fruit, and I was juicing greens and juicing fruit, and eating whole fruit as well. So it's a very toxic oxalate soup that will destroy your gut. Even if you have the most bulletproof gut in the world, I don't think you can survive that for very long. And I imagine the only people that could do it for very long, I think they juice up the nuts and they put a pre-digester in there for enzymes, and maybe that helps you survive it because it's a bit like cooking. You may as well just cook them. But yeah, so horrific.
And during this time, did you find yourself being hungry a lot?
You get hungry a lot. You eat often, so you're getting pretty hungry within 3 or 4 hours, sometimes 2 hours. Um, but yeah, my whole life I was hungry. It drove me insane. I absolutely hated it. I thought this vegetarian is just so. Why am I so hungry all the time? And I didn't know it was the diet, and even the raw diet. I just assumed I had to eat all the time. It's fruit and stuff, so you got to eat pretty frequently.
So you talked about the vegetarianism that you were brought up with was kind of a community thing. Was that related to, for example, religion
Yeah,
or
it's a
something like
church
that?
thing. Yeah, it's a church thing. I started with it's a Seventh Day Adventist church. That's where
Uh,
I grew up with them, and they're not all vegetarians. I found out later, but it's kind of the done thing. And our family did it full blast for my early life, and Dad went back to eating meat when I was a bit older, but I could never get used to it. The smell was odd, and he would boil lamb. I mean, how gross can you get? Put it in the oven already. But yeah, so yeah, he couldn't take it anymore, and he was strong right up until his 80s. He only slowed off in his 85th year or whatever. He lived into his 90s. He was always energetic. So now I know that I will possibly be like that once the carnivore takes hold. I'll feel like Superman compared to my earlier life, my previous life.
yeah, it just like for so long you've basically been starving yourself of nutrients, right?
Malnourished,
Bioavailable nutrients. Yeah.
unquestionably malnourished,
Oh.
slightly anxious, tired all the time, not focused, not energized. Absolutely horrible.
Have you ever suffered from depression?
I had depression for a couple of years in my 40s. Um, that disappeared, funnily enough, while I was doing the raw food diet, and it hasn't come back. Um, so, yeah, then I stopped the raw diet, and it still hasn't come back. And it's never came back. I don't know what that was about, but I think when I was younger, I was a little bit on the anxious side, not severely. My personality is not like that, but there was underlying. I did HSC. I didn't do I didn't do a single assignment. I would start them and I'd feel so anxious. I hated assignments. And I look back now and I think, oh, yeah, that's just anxiety. I could have pushed through it probably because I went to engineering school after that. I did a lot of assignments. But I just had this underlying anxiety all the time. And that's almost disappeared now. I
Mm.
don't really feel that at all.
Right. Wow. And just for international people watching, HSC is like your final 2 years of high school, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, wow. So you talked a little bit about you're still testing out like adding honey and sometimes and stuff like that. What is a day of eating like for you now?
This morning, 2 eggs. I had a bit of um, prosciutto, just maybe 5 grams, just to enhance the flavour. Um, as much butter as I could stand. Um, and I had a little bit of pork crisps, what do they call it, crackling, just for a little bit of salt and a bit of flavour. Um, I had that. That was a common meal for a little while. Other times I just get mince, fry it in a double-sided fryer, so it only takes a minute or two. And I don't have a lot at a time. I often eat 3 times a day, not always, but I'll have. That's the most common thing I've had: beef, eggs, butter, and I've tried a few other things. I had a bit of pork yesterday, but there's something about the flavour. I'd rather they turn it into bacon and remove all the spices. So maybe I have to make my own. I'll have to figure out how to make bacon and prosciutto. I found a prosciutto without spices. Most prosciutto's got spices in it, but I found an Italian one with just salt and pork, and a similar flavour. I don't know why they bother with the spices, and it feels good in the body. So my body feels so good at the moment comparatively that it used to. Oh, it's just I can feel joy coming into my ankle. That's a horribly burnt spot I used to have, and it feels joyful sometimes. It feels like now I can live. My ankle can live, and the other muscles that were sore permanently. So
And how are your what does your social circle feel about this? Have they commented?
um, on the diet, um, it's been limited. I can't. I've been sick so long. I kind of don't have much of a social circle anymore. I just keep to. I've been keeping to myself. I'm sharing in a house with a few people. Um, some of them no reaction. Some of them think I'm trying to talk them into eating meat. Some of them they're a little bit sus on it, but now they're starting to see results. And one of them even said, "Oh, I'll come on the podcast and tell them how well you're doing compared to what you were." Um, so he really notices the change, especially in the last couple of weeks. Um, so it hasn't been a huge. I will get resistance when I talk to people that I was friends with and they're vegetarians. I know a lot of vegetarians still. They'll probably be having a meltdown. That's my prediction. So they get angry even if you just even when I went low carb, like donkeys years ago, I went low carb for a while, and but it was vegetarian low carb, and some of them went mental at me. Oh, you can't eat all that fat. You're gonna die. It's gonna give you a heart attack and stuff like that. So I'm expecting a big hullabaloo sooner or later. But yeah, so far not too bad.
Hmm. So you said that a couple of people in the house feel like you're trying to convert them over to eating meat. So some of the people that live there are vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah, she's vegetarian,
Uh-huh.
and I'm telling her how I'm recovering, and she's making it about her. It's about me. I'm talking about my recovery. I'm not talking about your diet. um, but she thinks I'm kind of piercing in and trying to talk her into. I only mentioned it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, hardly at all. But yeah, it's just a. I don't know if that's a personal quirk or if that's going to be a common thing. But often
Yeah.
women, especially if you're in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship with her, but if you're in a relationship, they think you're trying to get them to do what you do. So yeah, she's a vegetarian. She's died in the war. I will never stop this. She's not.
Um.
It's not too bad on health anyway, so it's probably not. There's no why attacking her in a big way
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a bit
Mm.
of a why, but she's not willing to. She's not really. She's avoiding that why at the moment. But yeah,
Wow. So What does the future look like for you as far as your eating and maybe some goals that you've got?
Well, it'll be similar probably with eating. Um, I'll probably maybe if I get a bit more money, I'll step up the premium quality cuts or whatever. Because I've mainly just had mince. I had one steak, my first steak in my whole life, which is very tasty, and a friend made it for me. Smoked steak, beautiful. Um, so, but I strongly suspect that I'll just be doing a very similar diet. I'm trying to get a bit more variety happening, but I suspect it'll be on the same vein forever. I can't imagine collapsing back into old patterns um, and just feeling like garbage. I just can't imagine that. And I've not never really been a sugar addict. Dropping sugar was the easiest thing I ever did. I very rarely think of eating sugar. I very rare, probably bread's the most noticeable temptation. Um, the supermarkets have succeeded in making all bread poisonous to oxalate sensitive people. They put bean stuff in and they put wheat malt in, and I've only ever seen one bread that you buy, Sonoma brand, which has no oxalate reaction, but I can't imagine having more than one slice and then going, nah, this is not as good as what. So I think it'll just be carnivore forever. And so I'll probably get back to my career and eating my Superman diet. And yeah, it's all looking up at the moment. I'm halfway there.
Nice. That's really good to hear. So, Tim, do you have an Instagram or a YouTube or anything if people want to reach out?
I'm not on YouTube. I have a Rumble, which I changed the name of it actually just recently to Carnivore Cure. I think I should try and get into that to add to the noise that we have to make to get this magical system, um, so people know about it and what it can actually do. Someone can hear my exact story.
So, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.